All right, we are live.
Excellent.
Okay, perfect. So, welcome everybody. This is the South Florida Tech Podcast. This is the first of its kind. This is the experiment version of it, and we are so very lucky to have Dan Kane from Modernizing Medicine here with us. I'll give a quick introduction of the podcast, and we'll go right into talking with Dan. So, as I said, this is the South Florida Tech Podcast. It's a weekly show where we bring you the awesome, innovative people building the South Florida tech community. Each week, we'll introduce you to one of the Sunshine State's top tech leaders, learn more about who they are, what they do, and have some fun conversation along the way. This is, of course, presented by the Palm Beach Tech Association, a nonprofit dedicated to building South Florida into a tech hub. My name is Joe Russo, and I am your host for today. And I'm really excited to also share that we just right before we started here today, we're lucky to have a sponsor sign up for our podcast series, and that is Sales Message, a startup in Delray Beach, founded by Chris Brisson. They are a for-profit company that's been in existence there for, I believe, about 3 years. So in a time where most people don't even pick up their phones anymore, text messages actually have a 99% open rate. And Sales Message's two-way texting platform gives you a simple dashboard to send, receive, and manage text message conversations online or on the go, especially if you're in a sales process. So to learn more, go to salesmessage.com, and thank you very much to Chris for supporting this podcast. So let me go ahead and introduce Dan. He is a native of Lake Worth, Florida. He grew up, attended Lake Worth High School. He graduated from Cornell University in 1997 with a bachelor's degree. And then in his final year there, actually started a startup company that eventually became Blackboard, which is very well known for anybody who's been in the college atmospheres of late as one of the premier e-learning companies in the country. He sold that for a nice 1.6 billion in 2011. That's awesome. And then founded Modernizing Medicine, a healthcare IT company headquartered in Boca Raton, which has to date raised over $300 million in funding, and most importantly, employs over 800 people here in South Florida. So thank you very much, Dan, for joining us today and for being a part of the South Florida tech community.
Oh, thanks for having me, Joe. And thank you to our sponsors. It's great that someone stepped up and wanted to help out get the podcast and webinar series moving. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Florida's been a great home for Modernizing Medicine. After Blackboard, which in hindsight, even now with this latest crisis, seeing thousands of universities move to hybrid courses, purely online courses, distance education, it felt really good to have created and been sort of the godfather in many ways to that entire industry. And there are now dozens of great companies that do things like Blackboard does. But it was great to be one of the first, if not the first, to kind of push that and set these universities up for what they now need to do to be able to survive as institutions of teaching and learning. As you said, 10 years ago, I switched from one passion, which was education, to another passion, which is healthcare. And today, Modernizing Medicine has tens of thousands of providers out there serving well over 200 million patients. And most recently, we actually launched a telemedicine platform because in this new crazy environment we're in, where patients are home and doctors are home, they need to be able to connect virtually. So just as we're having this great podcast here from home, our doctors are actually doing very similar things, seeing patients through technology on their phones, through their webcams. And so we're doing what we can now to help doctors connect with patients in really meaningful ways.
Yeah. And so obviously we want to talk a little bit about Modernizing Medicine, but just the quick once over of Blackboard, the elevator speech, as it were. What you were doing in education is a little bit kind of what you're doing in healthcare now. Maybe if you can give some background on that too, real quick.
Sure. So I really like industries that have a greater calling, a greater meaning, and to do something and leave an indelible mark in something as important as education was exactly what we set out to do at Blackboard. So for those of you who don't know Blackboard powers entire universities, entire nations' e-learning systems. We started to run out of universities in the US to sell to, and so took it international. It ended up being in over 120 countries and 22 different languages. Blackboard powers all of their course management systems, meaning it's their document management, it's the assignments and group projects and chat rooms, and being able to basically conduct learning online. And whether you use that for a a classroom that physically meets in person, but you want an online supplement to that, or an entirely virtual distance education class, you'd be able to use Blackboard for it. And it was a fantastic adventure, starting that company, merging to form Blackboard, and then building that company up, taking it public in 2003. And then today, 10 years ago, the company was acquired and taken private, and it's now a very successful privately held company. But I wanted to do something equally impactful and meaningful, and something that resonated with me was healthcare in the US. Still today has a lot of work to do, as we can see. We are in a lot of ways ill prepared to manage some of these crises, but even when we're not in crisis mode, there's so much that technology can do to help augment healthcare, provide better information to providers, make the experience between doctors and patients much more seamless, so that they're treating the patient, not treating a computer screen or an electronic health record. And so we started Modernizing Medicine with a very simple vision to save doctors time. And what we found is the more time we save them, the more they spent it with the human being who's the patient, which is really where they went to med school to treat patients, not to treat computers. And so we've been very successful, and the market has rewarded us with a lot of growth over the last 10 years, because the mission is an honest one. It's a good one. We've managed to surround ourselves with hundreds of great employees who believe in the same vision, that we can make healthcare better by giving doctors back more time and more data so they can make better decisions.
So walk us through what the last couple of weeks have been for your company. Obviously, everyone's trying to pivot to the world around us right now, and not only continue operations, but also try and figure out more ways to adapt and drive the company forward, and not just keep the lights on. What's that experience been like, trying to lead through a very uncertain lens?
So there's a lot of uncertainty, and uncertainty is the hardest thing for leaders to be able to navigate through. That being said, the great leaders, I think, are the ones that have the vision ahead of where these things are going, and can adapt, to use your word, right? Survival of the fittest is not the strongest. It's not the best capitalized. It's the ones that are the most agile and can adapt to the situation. So Modernizing Medicine actually was able to transition to a 100% work from home workforce in a day. Because we were born in the cloud. All of our systems are cloud-based. Our messaging, our email, our chat rooms, our Salesforce systems, everything was just in the cloud. So there's very little change we had. Actually, there was no change in the systems we use. What we did do to prepare for this is we brought in outside consultants from Deloitte. They were wonderful. And we made the entire company attend a mandatory training on how to be great employees remotely and how to be great managers remotely. And we invited the employees to attend the manager training as well, because that was new for us. Like, the idea, we are a very headquarter-centric company. We have about 600 people in our headquarters in Boca. We do have 150 remote employees, so we had the right tools, but we were very HQ-centric. And what we had to do was learn, how do we have the same sort of stand-up meetings but use technology to enable it? How do we have collaborative, documentation? How do we work asynchronously? That actually has been the most exciting thing that's changed at ModMed. Is we went from a very collaborative, synchronous company, meaning we would have a lot of meetings and we'd work together on things together in the same space, in a war room, in a data room, in a team room, whatever. We've shifted that virtually, but we've also shifted to asynchronous collaboration. So as an example, I'm writing a letter to employees or to customers or to whoever. Other people can be seeing that document, but not at the same time. So we use Google Docs, and our different users I want to be able to review that can review it at their own pace. And people are it's seeming far more productive, actually having these asynchronous interactions for things. Now, obviously, you can't do that all the time. You need meetings when you need meetings. But we treat our synchronous collaboration, our video chat, as our most precious time. We try to do that as little as possible. And then we've shifted to this very asynchronous mode, which has been fantastic. I would say, by and large, the employees have embraced this wonderfully. They're excited about it. It's a new mode for them. Some are commenting that they can't turn off work, and it's important for them to do so. Go take a walk, grab a lunch. But people are kind of getting up and working and working and working, and it's in response to this crisis, and our customers need us now more than ever. But also, I'm concerned that our employees are working too effectively, too hard, and I do need them to make sure that they balance work and life. And it's really hard when it's all now in the same place. Like, I joke that my new coworkers, which is my family and my pets, aren't used to this constant mode of work. And so I'll get, people running around in the background screaming, or the dog is barking because someone knocked at the door. And it's just the new normal, and it's the normal we have to deal with.
Well, one of the things I've always been impressed by, and it's very hard for, I think, any company to balance, is culture. And trying to take a in-person culture online is obviously, not an easy equation. Have you or maybe some of your team members found some ways to try and connect on a more cultural and more personal level during this?
Yeah, absolutely. And at ModMed, culture is extremely important. I think a lot of people say that, but those that have actually gotten to visit us or see us or work for us really now understand just how special our culture is. And a lot of the things we would do together, the salsa dancing or the Zen room, or we give meals to our employees and we break bread together. That's a real part of our culture. Obviously, that's all changed. So how do you replicate some of that? Obviously, you can't salsa dance online, though maybe if we figure that one out, we'll be rich. How do you have those collaborations online, those fun times? So we had our first virtual happy hour last Friday, right? Where we all got on, a technology, you can see everybody and we're all there with drinks and having fun and telling jokes. You need to be able to create swim lanes, I call them, for work, and separate swim lanes for culture and for fun. So we use Google Chat. It's just like Slack or anything else, where we've got team rooms and groups and different sort of areas that people can go to for, light humor, for jokes. We have a channel where people are posting pictures of their new coworkers. So pictures of their pets helping them or their kids helping them or whatever. And so it is important to consciously focus on culture now more than ever, to have that communication. I've gone to weekly communications. Before, we had a first Friday meeting that the whole company got together, and we will still do that now virtually. But now I'm sending weekly emails to the employees, letting them know what's going on, what to expect, how we check in with each other. We have built new tools, which are really helpful to let us track who's home, who's taking PTO, but healthy, who's taking PTO and is sick, so we can make sure that we're supporting all of our employees in the best way possible.
Yeah. So you mentioned your family there for a second, and I have to imagine one of the pros, if any, during this crisis is obviously spending more time with loved ones. But taking it through maybe just a general lens here for a second, what would your kids describe about you if they were to say, "This is Dad, and this is what Dad does"? They take you to take your dad to work day. How would that go down?
How would that go down? So we were actually playing a game yesterday at dinner where we had to see, which of the kids knew the most about, mom and dad. And so we asked them all these questions about, like, how do you spell our middle names? And where's our favorite place? What's our favorite food? What's our favorite movie? And it's fun to see, how much your kids know you or what they think. All three of my kids said my favorite place is work. So I don't know what that tells me about being a father. I do spend, I think, a lot of time when I'm with them. For example, dinner together is sort of non-negotiable, right? We sit together, we have a meal together, and then people can break and do their stuff. I'm not on my phone. And despite this craziness of this last week where my text messages are blowing up and emails blowing up and there's things I got to do, it's important to be able to shut it down and just in that moment, in that half an hour of dinner together and then cleaning up, just be with them and focus on them. I would say my kids would certainly say that I'm a workaholic. That I do things that matter, and they realize that I have them as my family, but I think of all 850 employees as my family, and I'm always worried about how do I take care of them, especially in a time of crisis. And so I've got a very healthy understanding, I think on both sides, on work and family, that you've got to take care of both and find a balance. And I have never found that balance. I think anyone who has is lying. But it's a constant, just remind yourself to be in whatever moment you're in. If you're in work mode, work. If you're in family mode, be with your family, and both sides will understand that you have to be able to shut down one or the other to be a whole person.
Yeah, and on some of that lens too, I mean, you've obviously been working nonstop to build a great company and provide a lot of opportunities for a lot of people. But what would you say at the baseline drives you, or what inspires you to do what you do and be the Dan that a lot of people know nowadays?
So you can't fake a mission. You can't fake a culture. You can't buy a culture, right? So I would say that what drives me is the need itself. So take modernizing medicine. Our providers desperately need our technology, our team, our embrace of data and data sharing, and being able to get the wisdom into the hands of the person who's going to make a decision for a patient that'll lead to a better outcome. You can't fake that. Like you can't fake a mission. So when you actually have something that's meaningful, whether it's Blackboard and we're